Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom.
Good morning. How are you today, Bob?
Good. What was that? You didn't like that? Was that too?
Did I say anything?
No? You just had a weird look, so it's all good.
You're not judging my looks, are you? Thinking you can read me by my look?
No, probably not. I have got to get a light so I can actually be seen. I have a light. I need a stand. Yeah. All good. So happy Wednesday to you, Tom.
It is Wednesday. Yes, it is. Thanks. Happy Wednesday to you as well. And welcome to everyone to this edition of today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast where we try to provide that one thing. We have a discussion around a topic. This week, our topic is finding fault. And at the end of the show, we try to provide our one thing, our one antidote to help you as you try to move along your own unique pathway to success. And we hope that if you have comments, we had a lot of comments yesterday. So if you have a comment, please feel free to put it in the chat. If you are watching this on Facebook Live, Twitter, or YouTube. If you are listening to the podcast, we hope that if you have some thoughts, send us a note or go to our Ring of Renegades Facebook group and post it there. You can also share this and rate us, rate our podcast.
5 stars.
5 stars. And because that will help get the message out to more people. Because we all know that there are many people out there looking for something. And this may be the one thing that they are looking for. So thanks so much for being a part of our show today. And as we always do to start the day out, we do our celebrations. So Bob, what are you celebrating today?
I think I'm going to celebrate the fact that I played golf yesterday and it was a hard course to play and I could have gotten very frustrated and I did not. And I think it also applies to business. There are times when you have a hard day and you can get very frustrated and very annoyed and it just makes things worse. And I see a lot of parallels in my golf play and in my business behavior. So for me, it was really a good sign that I didn't get frustrated when I hit a ball into the water, that I didn't know there was water there and things like that. You've played golf
a little bit. Didn't even get a little bit frustrated. Like, why would they put a pond somewhere where we can't see it?
I did question it. Yes.
Okay, that's fair. But you moved on. That's the.
I did. I found my happy place and kept going. Yes. So what are you celebrating?
You know what I'm celebrating is that we have these conversations almost every day.
We, you and me? Or
Correct.
we, the. Okay.
We, you and me. And, you know, we have them and there's always something interesting that comes out of it. And then a lot of times when I go to LinkedIn, I'll post on LinkedIn about it. And yesterday, as I was thinking through this, I just had some other thoughts about it that really made me pause a half a second. And I think, you know, what I'm celebrating is that opportunity to get up and have a conversation and have someone to talk through. And, you know, if we get listener comments, which I think is part of, you know, what was one of the great things about yesterday's shows, we had a bunch of them. And it just, I think, helps clarify in my mind or creates more questions, which I think is also an interesting thing. And I guess that's my celebration, is the opportunity to share thoughts with others so that you can help better clarify where you're at. You know, and I think part of the challenge is so often we don't find people who we can talk through those things with. And so we end up staying stuck and unable to figure out how to move forward. So, you know, maybe it's the celebration of community. For some reason, I was feeling that yesterday. And so that's what I'm celebrating today.
That might be my favorite celebration of all.
Oh, good.
So we have a national celebration today, and this one's really important.
More important than yesterday?
Yes. It's National Housewives Day. And the importance is, I know a lot of women who are both housewives and women working in business, doing entrepreneurial things, trying to manage those two things. That is not an easy path, and neither gives a lot to make it easy for them at times. So it's definitely a day worthy of celebration. And more, you see women who are having children, and rather than just being totally devoted to their children, they're devoted, but they're also doing a part-time job, selling Tupperware or Scentsy or Arbonne or any of these things. And that's hard to do because you've got to manage when you deal with the kids. You've got to get your spouse or someone else to watch your kids when you're doing presentations. It's a difficult path. And so I think it's great that it's National Housewives Day, so we can celebrate not just any housewife, which is a job in and of itself. That's a full-time job, no doubt. But also, I'd like to celebrate the ones who are full-time housewives and also pursue business.
It's interesting because I almost had thought that word had sort of been phased out.
I guess it could be house husband too.
Yeah, I thought they were like more at stay at home. Just because I think
you could be these days. You could be stay at home and also be building a candle selling business. You could be, we know someone who does. She's worked farmers markets. She's sold stuff. Someone that helps us with our graphics. No,
I 100% agree. I think it's just interesting. Just interesting that I guess I had thought that housewives was
I don't choose the words. I just pull them from the list. NationalDayCalendar.com. If you want to complain to someone, Tom, there's where you go.
I haven't heard back from them either about National Renegade Day.
I knew that. I knew it was coming.
I think that's gonna be a little, pain point for me until we get some clarity on that. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously it's for anyone who stays at home and manages multiple things,
or even just being a great parent.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's another job.
I'm not sure it's another job, Tom, because you don't get a sick day if you're a mother.
Well,
and I'm the least qualified to speak to this because, one, I'm not a woman, and two, I've never had children. So I'm probably out of my league, but I can only imagine from what I've observed that this is tricky. I'm trying to figure out who sent us that comment.
Yeah, but housewife and homemakers are very common terms today. Okay. I guess
that came from Pamela.
All right. Thanks, Pamela. Yeah, I thought that had kind of been phased out. Because it's interesting, housewife doesn't necessarily imply that there are children. It's not a house parent or a house mother or a house woman so I guess does that mean it's just women who stay at home whether they have children or not, and run the house?
Could very well be. I just took a turn on that, just trying to bring it to what we try to do.
Okay, appreciate that. It's interesting that you that was not a.
Shall we move on?
If you'd like, I don't know.
I would.
I was kind of enjoying the conversation, but and we'll move on. That's all right. So, before you start finding fault in me, then that will be for why this show has gone off the rails, which probably you do about every day.
I was gonna say.
So our conversation this week, our topic is finding faults, and yesterday we talked about in ourselves.
That's what we should. Can I just say, Tom, as you said that, I'm realizing we should have called this program Off the Rails. That would have been a much better name.
It would have been a different name. I don't know if it's better or not. And it could be, I think there's other ways you could look at Off the Rails. That's a good topic.
Maybe we start a second podcast where we're just off the rails.
We could do that. It's an option to consider.
All right, I'm sorry. I sidetracked us yet again. I'm going to stay focused because I'm really into this whole finding fault discussion.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about finding fault in others. Since you're so into this, why don't you just lead off for us today?
Well, one of the great things about finding fault in others is we don't take responsibility for our own actions. It's really easy for me to blame the economy, the pandemic, customers that don't understand what I'm trying to explain to them, people that are afraid to make a buying decision. I can go on and on. And people that don't read email because I sent them an email and they don't read email. It's easy to blame all those people, but in every single one of those cases, okay, everyone deals with the same economy. Everyone's dealing with the same pandemic. If someone doesn't understand what I'm selling, I didn't explain it right in a way that they could understand it. I haven't found the right language or the right things that matter to them. I forget what the last one was. Oh, if they don't read my email, it's probably because the subject line or the content wasn't of interest to them. All four of those I can affect. And so when we blame others, what I find more and more is when we're blaming other people, it's really not being willing to accept the potential responsibility that we have to figure things out. And it's easier to blame other people and go, wow, I've sent 5 emails and no one's paying attention. That's hard. I've called this company 5 times and no one's ever replied to me. I just keep leaving messages. Well, that's on me if that's happening. That's not on the company. That's not on the world at large. There isn't a vast conspiracy against our success. And I think when we find fault in others, we avoid taking responsibility. Notice I'm not saying finding fault in ourselves. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm responsible for figuring out a way to make my business successful. You are too. Just like you and I are responsible for making this program useful, whether to us or other people.
And yet we don't control any of that. Ultimately, the final, because what you're talking about is results, right? You talked about, do they open my email? Do they read it? Do they act on it? We can't control that. And I think so often when we find fault in either ourselves or others, is because we're looking at results and not getting the results we expected. And yet we don't always control that. We don't, and I think a lot of times we don't have all the information. Right. We don't really know necessarily unless we get the opportunity to ask, like, why didn't you respond to my email?
Right.
And then they might have said, oh geez, I was really busy, or I looked at it when I was on my phone when I was out and I just forgot to get to it, or all these other things that could be part of the reason of why they didn't respond that you have zero control over. And I think that's one of the interesting things about when we start thinking about finding fault in others is, do we have all the information to know what's going on? Or are we just making a snap judgment based on what we know? And maybe there's more information out there that we don't need to know. I think it's interesting. It's, when either us or someone else is a new employee in an organization, it becomes very easy to look back at past actions and find fault in things that were done. And yet, as a new employee, how often do you have all the facts? Do you have all the information of what happened, why it happened? You just see the results, say, well, that wasn't a very good marketing strategy, or that wasn't whatever. And, there's lots of things that go into how we create marketing strategies, sales plans, our sales process, how we ship, all the things that we could do within our business. And so much of it is driven by what's real for us, our knowledge, experience, and perspective. And, when someone new comes in, they have different knowledge, experience, and perspective. And looking at what we do, it sometimes can be easy to judge. And I think a lot of times what happens is they don't have all the information. So they make decisions that are partially informed or differently informed. and later start to see some of the challenges that are faced. I'll share what I think is an example. I think when I left Towson, left one of my roles, I think people thought, well, a new person's going to come in and they're just going to bring in all new people and everything's going to change. And will some things change? Absolutely. There are some constants that may never change and may never be able to really have the impact that somebody from the outside looking in hasn't considered, isn't aware of, doesn't see why this may be a challenge, thinking they just can come in and correct everything that others believe is not getting the results that they expected. And yet, sometimes once you then get in there and start to realize that there are things that you didn't know when you found fault in others without all the information. Does that make any sense?
It does. Makes a lot of sense. Really does. Are you ready for my one thing?
Sure.
If you're finding fault in others, I would encourage you to step back and really think about what's going on. Because often when I say things like they should have, why didn't they? That's when I've really got to step back and think about what I can control. I like how you brought that into it. I didn't think of that until you said it. But really, what can I control? Because they should have means I think I can control them, and I can't. So often that they should have brings me back to, okay, what have I done? Did I do the best I could? Did I invest the best? Did I get the best resources? Did I use all the information available? And when I didn't, that's the opportunity to grow. And that's one of the things what we talked for last month and a half about our day pack. The way we capture those questions and you look at your what you've done with more an eye to analyze, not to gauge results. Really, that's the key. That's the result part. That, the results are you can control how you show up the next day, the next time. You can't control what it does. But if you can take the information you've learned from the last time and apply it in new ways, that's when you start taking those steps towards achieving whatever it is you want to achieve.
Because you gain more knowledge, right? You gain more experience. You know something. It's interesting. It's like you can never, and maybe I said this on the show the other day, is that you can never repeat exactly a situation. I think I was talking about the presentation that I gave, is that once I have given it to that group of people, I can't change it. I can't redo it, and because they would know what's coming. It would be very,
Right.
It would be a different experience. So it's like once something has happened, rather than spending a lot of time judging it, say, okay, what did I learn? So the next time I have an opportunity to do something similar, what would I do differently? And it's interesting. And this is where I got caught up yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Is, at some point, and it's not finding fault, but it's just better understanding. All I could think about, and I was trying to find, and I couldn't. Did you ever see the comic Family Circle?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So there used to be, and they had a bunch of little kids, for those who don't know it, and the parents would, have the typical issues going on when you have little kids. Like, okay, who broke the plate? Well, nobody did. And they always had these cute, like, ghost kids that they called nobody, who ran around because none of the kids would take responsibility for it. And so at some point you want to know who broke the plate so that you can help them figure out, all right, what, usually it's so we can punish, which is kind of like work. It's like, okay, who sent out the wrong email? Does it really matter who sent it out? I mean, it matters if we want to help that person figure out how, what they might do differently. But if it's just to say, oh, you know what, we're going to dock your pay, we're going to do whatever, does that really help? Does it help them figure out, or is it going to make them more nervous that someone is looking to find fault in what they do or what they have done, and makes it harder for them to think about moving forward? And, so that I just got thinking about that, is that yes, there is a part of us that it's helpful to know maybe who sent the email, who sent the wrong package, who was out and made a comment that was not the way the organization would want to be represented.
Ooh, been there, done that.
Only, I would hope that a good leader would be like, only so that I can help them better understand or have different knowledge, experience, and perspective, so that the next time they may not do it. Now,
or make a different decision.
correct. They may choose not to. And if they decide they don't want to learn from past decisions and continue making similar decisions, okay, now there's some retribution for the action. I think it's so often we want to know who or what was at fault, mostly only so that we can make them feel bad about being at fault, rather than how do we learn from this? How do we take this as an opportunity to say, okay, it wasn't exactly what we wanted. And now that you've done that, how do we potentially change what your current knowledge, experience, and perspective is, so that the next time you can figure out how to move forward differently?
I like it. Wow. We got deep again today. This is good. I like deep.
Well, I think it's a big conversation, because I think it's something that happens all the time. And I think what usually happens is people are angry, right? Something happened that didn't go the way we thought it was going to be. So one side of it is angry that we didn't get the results we wanted. The other side is nervous because they're worried about, well, what's going to happen now? And I think it's when those two things meet is when you get people who are stuck, because they're like afraid to make a decision. They're afraid to take a chance. And I think maybe you said this yesterday, was that some organization embraced quote unquote mistakes. I'd rather call them actions that didn't achieve the results we desired. And how do we then take those actions and what we've gained from that and figure out how to move forward, so that the person who is angry about the action can better relax and not be stressed about everything that's going out. And now, granted, there are various levels of actions that turn into not so good results. And there are others that are not really going to completely destroy the organization. So how do we take those and help people feel like, okay, it's okay to take some of those steps, because you're learning. You're helping us figure out how we move closer to success, rather than being worried that, how many times do you look at an email and stare at it before you hit send, because you're like, I don't know if I have the right words. I don't know that it sends the right message. I don't know how the person's going to react. And so you just sit there in a land of stuck, rather than hit submit. I mean, is there a typo? Okay. I always love that when people send back letters or emails once I got one back with all this red ink from someone.
I'm sorry, Tom. I just felt like you needed better grammar.
Need a different grammar.
I'm joking, people. That's a joke. I've never done that to Tom.
No, he hasn't. That's true. So I think it's just a matter of, I think that stunts people's opportunities to grow, because they're now nervous about what are they going to do next.
Well, finding fault gets in the way of progress.
Absolutely.
It is, it is the air brake that just any progress you're making, when fault comes into the equation. Okay, who did this? Who didn't do that? That's not the climate where you're going to have creativity. That's not the climate where someone's going to say, hey, what if?
Correct.
That's the climate where someone's going to go, I'm sorry, I'll do what you tell me.
Absolutely. So I guess that's my one thing. That was a lot for one thing.
Okay, nice. You want to bring this baby into the station, since we were off the rails? Back on the rails. See how I did there? Into the station, the train.
Yes, I did see what you did there.
The explanation was way more than needed.
Correct. That's something that you might, go back and say, okay, what went well about that? What didn't go as planned, and what might I do differently?
Well, I know there's someone who really doesn't like it. It's kind of fun just to mess with that person every now and then.
Fair enough. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us today. We hope that you found value in it. We hope that if you see something you think others
5 stars.
you can also rate our podcast 5
Could I
stars.
just throw that in randomly?
Just a random inclusion in that. Maybe that's something you could. It's like subliminal messaging in records. If you play this backwards, there will be a very different message that you will.
Paul is dead, right? Isn't that what the Beatles won? The song?
I have no idea.
Okay, it was a Beatles.
I'm not
song.
sure. I'm always trying to figure out, well, how do you? I didn't really want to just sit there and spin the record.
Yeah, me either. I'm with
People
you.
who have never really used records have no idea what we're talking about.
No, it's completely beyond them.
All right, everyone. So if you are not yet a member of our Ring of Renegades Facebook group, we hope that you will join us. It's a great place where people get together and have conversations like this about how to figure out how to move forward, not to stay stuck. And it's a community that provides you with the space to share some of those challenges that you might be facing, or you're like, wow, I'm dealing with a supervisor who just all they want to do is find fault. What do I do? Or I'm the one who can't seem to avoid needing to know who's at fault. That's a space where we can talk about it. So all you have to do is go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and you just have to ask to join because it is a private group. And then tell us why you're a renegade, and you can become a part of this growing community of people who are helping one another take their next step, on their own unique pathway to success. So with that, we hope that we will see you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we will see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of Today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, embrace the renegading you.
You
That's
didn't
all.
like your "it's
That's all.
time" or whatever you said yesterday?
I don't remember what I said.
Okay. All right. So we'll just move on. Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening to Today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.